What's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Young Guns podcast. Today we have something interesting to be talking about, something that we thought that would never happen, and that is potentially the Chicago Blackhawks trading Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. And the reason why we're even talking about this is because a couple of days ago, they announced that their interim GM Kyle Davidson was no longer there temporarily, but he was there full time, and he has a plan in store. And that plan is that he's thinking of doing more of a rebuild than a retool. And he's also said that there's some things we need to fix, and that's going to take some time. We all know that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, when they were proposed the idea of a rebuild by their old GM Stan Bowman, they weren't really happy with that. They're like, "No way! I don't condemn that. I'm totally against it. It's time to win now. Like whatever, we're on the team. We want to win. We're capable of doing that." And here we are again. But this time it seems like it's actually going to happen because Bowman didn't make any moves that kind of signify that they were going to rebuild. It looked like they were in the win now mode because he wanted to please Kane and Taves. But Davidson does not care for that. And he knows that this team needs to go through a rebuild in order to become a dynasty, or at least close to the team that Chicago was in the 2010s.
Yeah, and I think that it's pretty crazy. I mean, look, Chicago's needed to go through a rebuild, and you know how we always talk. We've looked at different teams and whatever, and even everybody in the world. You look at Chicago, and when you look at Chicago, you look at the dynasty teams like you mentioned, and how well they've been and how successful they have been for so many years. But I think over the last couple of years, we've kind of seen them fall back a little bit and come back down to earth. And obviously, Patrick Kane's not getting any younger. Jonathan Toews not getting any younger. And they don't really have the core to make a playoff push. And so I think for Patrick Kane and for Jonathan Toews, it kind of puts them in a tough position. Because I know that if you're a guy like Patrick Kane, you want to obviously go for another cup. You want to be on a successful team. But I'm also kind of surprised because, for me, I look at Patrick Kane's career, and the guy's got 3 Stanley Cups to his name. To me, I'm not – look, obviously chase as many victories as you want. But I just think that, he's been through so much success with Chicago that now all of a sudden they're trying to go through a rebuild, and you're like, "No, I don't want to be a part of that." I think it's not selfish, but I think it's a little bit like, okay, well, you've already had your success. It's time for you to try to help the young guys develop and try to see if you can maybe make a playoff push one more time before the end of your career. I find that surprising if Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews especially are not willing to stay for a rebuild and stuff like that, especially since they've already had that much success in their career.
What are your thoughts, Chris, on Kane and Patrick and Taves' comments and Davidson's comments?
Well, I think, well, I mean, honestly, for Taves and Kane, I mean, listen, they're competitive guys. I don't think anybody wants to go through a rebuild, whether you're old or young. I think everybody, wants to win.
Of course.
But when it comes to them being traded and for the rebuild to happen, I mean, it's inevitable. This probably should have happened 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
now, I mean, listen, you'll get piece for Patrick Kane. You'll definitely get a lot of return, not as much as you should have, you could have gotten 3-4 years ago. But I think Jonathan Toews, I really don't see anybody wanting to take him now. I think he's kind of unmovable. He's gonna go to free agency. Some team will pick him up for half the contract that he's worth now, maybe even less than that. And I think Jonathan Toews is kind of a lost cause. Kane, however, you could salvage some stuff in return.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I kind of agree with that too. I mean, look, they've got 2 years left they've got 1 year left after this season.
And what are they currently being paid? Because I think they're getting paid the same amount of money.
Yeah,
10.5 million each.
10.5 million.
Okay.
And so what's crazy about that, right, is look, they can stay with Chicago for 1 more year and then go through free agency. And obviously, like Chris mentioned, it's Jonathan Toews is unmovable. No matter what happens, the guy's contract right now is unmovable that no team would take it. However, I do see a situation where next season, if Jonathan Toews is healthy and playing, a decent amount of games, I could see a situation where Chicago retains some salary and maybe a team takes a chance on him. With Patrick Kane, it's a little bit different because Patrick Kane's still performing at the highest level possible, even at 33 years old. And I think for Patrick Kane, he's a guy that on a team that's fighting for a playoff spot or even just competing in general, I think he could do a lot for a team of that caliber. We know how good Patrick Kane is. We know how skillful he is too. He's still got it, and I think that could still go for a little longer. So
And concerning Jonathan Taves and Kane, I know a lot of people are going to be like, but who to want these guys? You know, they're part of the whole scandal that happened with Kyle
yeah,
Beach. You know, they're not true leaders. They're probably going to be toxic in the locker room. We're putting that aside and we're just talking about not the player, not the people, but the players themselves. What can they contribute to a hockey team, right? And in my mind, Jonathan Taves is still one of the best captains in the modern era, and he's a great player as well. And you know, like he got very sick last season. He missed all of last season. So you know, it's not really it was out of his control. This season, you know, not the best season, but it's understandable because he missed a whole season of hockey, right? So he's trying to adapt and stuff. There's also injuries that come with that, and so on, right? And the team's not performing properly. And then you have Kane, who's doing, you know, excellent like always. He's partnered up with the Brinkat at all times, power
yeah.
play, first line. So obviously Kane has more value. Going back to what Chris is saying, um, but if I had to see like how this thing would turn out, I would see that you know I see Kane potentially going to a New York team, so probably a team like New Jersey Devils that have a lot of money, maybe even a team like New York Islanders that need that caliber of player, that elite or like franchise star to play alongside Barzell. But for me, at the end of the day, and this is a team that everyone's been linking to Kane because he's from there, and that's the Buffalo Sabres.
And I was just about to say that actually. I look, I know people think it might be a little bit crazy, but if Chicago's willing if Patrick Kane's willing to go and Chicago's willing to trade him too, Buffalo makes a lot of sense. And I'm gonna say, I know that all people are looking to tell Buffalo's out of the playoff spot right now. Yeah, but they're kind of that team that looks like they're on the rise, and they kind of look like they're kind of rebuilding on the right track. And I think adding a guy like Patrick Kane and the fact that he's from Buffalo and playing with the young guys like Tage Thompson's had a really good season this year and he's looked good. Alex Tuck's been good there as well. Peyton
Peyton
Krebs,
Krebs there.
you
Even
know,
Skinner's having a
that's it.
fantastic season.
Skinner's
He looks
playing
like he's
well,
back in
and they've
form. They have
they've
Owen
got
Power coming in. They have
yeah,
Dahlin. Potentially, they're going to have a starting goaltender in Devon Levy.
that's it.
Um,
So
so
that
it's looking promising for once in a
and
very long time for Buffalo and their
they've
fans.
got guys. They've got guys to build around. And I think if you're Buffalo, you obviously you pursue that. And if you're Patrick Kane, you look at that and you say, okay, well, this team with a few more pieces and with a guy like me, let's say, could definitely make a push for this. And I mean, what's interesting too is, obviously he's younger, but I'm saying like Patrick Kane kind of replaces what Eichel was, at least for a couple of years. And so that kind of helps Buffalo out because it means that they would essentially replace Jack Eichel with Patrick Kane, which is really not that bad at all. And so it helps them. Obviously, you're getting an older Patrick Kane, but we've seen what he's done next to the Brinket. And imagine putting him on a line with Alex Tuck or Tage Thompson or Peyton Krebs. Like those guys are going to perform just as much, especially a guy like Tage Thompson, who's already playing well without a superstar talent next to him and there's that. So I think for me it makes a ton of sense for Patrick Kane to go to a team like the Buffalo Sabres if they decide to pursue it, and if Patrick Kane would obviously be interested in that because he has a no move clause, so he would have to waive it in order for him to go there. So yeah,
I mean, I would see him going there more towards free agency. I don't see them making a deal for
I
a
think,
trade.
yeah, I think
One
both
for
of
one, they
them.
would have to give up a lot to get Patrick Kane, and I don't think they're willing to do that. Especially that they don't have a bunch of great prospects to give. And honestly, if
I disagree.
looking at this team right now, um, let's say they're going. I don't necessarily think they need a full like we're gonna rebuild everything. We're stripping everything down. Everybody's tradable. We're gonna accept like whatever's best. I think if by looking at this, I would say your franchise player or your face of the like where you should build your team around would be Alex the Brinkat and Kirby Doc. I think those are the two
Yeah,
guys that they should build around.
that's the
On
future for them.
on defense, he's unmovable because of his contract. Honestly, I think there's a team out there that would want to get him for 9.5 million,
Not now.
but Seth Jones is a great defenseman. So probably not this year, but like in years to come, or you could have like he could be like your veteran guy who's for the team, who shows leadership, and he's there to quarterback your
He can
defense,
still
I guess.
contribute. He's still a great player.
Yeah,
Just
he is. He is.
it's
But
the
it's just
value that
he
he
doesn't.
comes at. You know what I
His
mean? The contract.
it's
That's
his.
difficult to digest on a
Well,
team salary
it's a
cap.
combination of everything. It's the
I
fact that
think
he's going to be 28, getting paid until he's 30. I can't see I think his contract ends in 2029.
it's
So
a
he's going to
seven.
be yeah,
It's
he's
a
going to be getting
year.
paid in his mid 30s. You're a rebuilding team. Do you want $9.5 million held by a guy who's going to be older than everybody else when this team's going to be competing? Like by the time this team is finished rebuilding and they're like official contenders, this guy is not going to be playing at the same level that he's playing right now, and his
Well,
contract's going to be hindering the
and
team.
that's kind of the point that I'm going to try to make now. I mean, if you want to trade a guy like Seth Jones, I think for $9.5 million, I don't know how many teams would want to digest that because let's be honest, Seth Jones is an offensive defenseman. Defensively, he's not really the best player, and that's the truth. You can see it from advanced analytics. He's not that great defensively. However, he's had a better year this year than he did last year, and he's looked good at times, especially for Chicago. I think that contract is maybe movable now. Maybe if you try to move him now, if that's what they decided to do, which I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but if they decide to do that, maybe you could get it now. The problem is that if they want to move Seth Jones, they have to do it quickly because that contract is slowly going to become unmovable, like you said, because of the fact that he's going to be turning in his mid 30s, and then at that point, he's not going to play at the highest level
Yeah.
possible. I think also what's interesting is for me, Chicago is, like you mentioned, not that far off. But one guy that they talked about potentially trading away, and I know that it's kind of a bit of a surprise because he's 23 years old, he's having a really good season. Brandon Hagel, he's another guy that we didn't talk about when we talk about building around because I think Brandon Hagel's had a really underrated season, and I think with the right players and obviously given it a bigger role as well, he could definitely do a lot. And he's got $1.5 million on his contract for the next
Well, I
2 years.
think he's going to be dealt at the deadline or at least in the
I
off
don't think they
season.
should though. That's what I'm
I
trying
don't.
to
I
say.
don't. Yeah, I don't think they should trade him
I
yet.
hope not because he's been, a very surprising player. He's been having a breakout season for the Chicago Blackhawks under all the smoke and everything. He's been like basically the burning fire that keeps the team running and helps them win games. And he got a hat trick a couple of games ago. So it's really looking promising for him in his career with the Chicago Blackhawks. But the question is, if you get a lot of value in return for him, you make the move, yes or no? And I think
Yes.
that
Well, depends what the value is. If it's a first round pick and a top prospect, you take it 100%. But
yeah,
he's
because
also 23, so it depends on
the thing is that you
I
don't really know if
disagree.
he's
I rather that trade you just mentioned for Kubalik instead of this guy, instead
yeah,
of
that's a
Hagel.
guy that they have to move to. But we don't want to get too much into the other players because again, we already spoke about that in the Chicago video, what went wrong with the Chicago Blackhawks. We made a couple weeks ago, so you guys could definitely check that out. But I want to go back to the main topic, which is moving. We spoke about Kane, talking about Jonathan Taves. I see Jonathan Taves, and again, like both players, I don't think they're going to be traded. I think both of them are just going to simply walk away as UFAs when their contracts end
Well,
next summer.
I wouldn't say that about Kane. I think
Yeah,
Kane
maybe
Kane has
Kane's more
somewhat value.
movable.
He has a lot of value
Yeah, he has a lot
actually.
of value, but I don't know. I don't really know how that's going to work out. But just my perspective, I see both of them just walking as UFAs. And in Taves' case, I see him coming back to Canada and signing with a team either like the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, or even the Ottawa Senators. I don't. I'm excluding Toronto because they have Matthews and what's his name, John Tavares. Unless they want to slot in Taves as a third line center, I don't really know about that. I don't think that's really a fit there. The Montreal Canadiens. It's possible, but I
Well,
mean they are going through a rebuild as well, so I don't think so as
call
well.
me,
The Vancouver Canucks, I don't see it happening either.
uh,
It's yeah, so and
call,
even the
call me.
Winnipeg Jets, I don't see that happening either.
Two things I'm gonna say. One, Winnipeg makes sense because he's from there, so if he wants to go back to Winnipeg, he could. But I'm gonna make a bold statement here. I think he retires. The reason why I think that is because he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. Last year he didn't play. This year I think he has a concussion now. I'm pretty sure, and he's out.
He's actually got activated.
Jonathan Tates is at a point in his career
Yeah,
where he's slowly starting to like
Deteriorate.
deteriorate essentially, right? And the problem with that is that like you can even see his play on the ice. It's not the same as it was, and he's nowhere near the Jonathan Toews level that he is supposed to be. And he's 33. And also him dealing with injuries, it's not helping his career at all. So I think maybe what happens is either he gets placed on LTIR or he plays next season and then retires. I could see a situation where he retires because there was talks about him potentially retiring last year, and then he came back from that illness that he had,
That's a possibility too that I
and
did
he
not
played.
even
So,
consider, to be honest. It's
so
actually a very good
I'm
point,
gonna
Luca.
go. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he just might retire after his contract.
And what's
I can
your
see that
take,
happening.
Chris, on Jonathan
I mean,
Taves?
yeah, I see the retirement being a possibility because let's be honest. I really don't see him getting paid a lot of money, even if he does go into free agency. And I
I
don't
would
know if
see
he's.
him $3 to $4 million max.
Even that I find is a bit too generous. I would see more like a like 2 million is pretty generous for a guy who's
Uh,
injured, 34. He doesn't like he's slow and the game's getting faster. There's a lot of factors when it comes to that. Also, the fact that like he wants to be on a competitive team, and these competitive teams already have like all their salary locked up in other guys who are more valuable. So I mean they can't afford to pay him
A
like
good comparison that I would
a lot
make,
of money.
and I don't know if people are gonna crap on me for this, but I see if he does continue his career, I see him becoming what Jason Spezza is right now,
Well,
playing
he's
on a
getting paid 800K though.
yeah, but he's gonna get paid a little bit more because he's not as old as Spezza, but like, I think he's gonna fall into that role.
That's just playing
Third
better.
third line, yeah, he's having great in that role because they're utilizing him properly, and I think that's what they're gonna with if Taves does continue his career and he signs with a team. I think that's what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna slot him into the third or fourth line role, and he's gonna be more. He's gonna have some offensive upside because it's Jonathan Taves. It's sort of Spezza, but decreased minutes and more of a defensive role. I think would be more suitable for a guy like Taves who deals with a lot of injuries now, and he's up there in age. And also, he had that whole situation where he missed a year because he was diagnosed with an illness. Um, so yeah, so I see him slotting him into that. I don't think we have anything.
fun fact: Spezza and him have the same amount of points. Well, I
Oh
mean,
wow.
Tays has 7 less games, but still, they have the same amount of points.
I just wanted to take one question before we end this episode, which is from Erin. Is like, yeah, the Taves trade should happen next year. 1 year left. They can retain some salary. Who wouldn't want a motivated Taves or Kane for a playoff run? Yeah, we're not discrediting the possibility of that. Definitely, I think both these guys would like to continue playing hockey. The thing is that on Taves' part, is he mentally and physically fit to continue after everything he's been dealing with? And for me, that's a question mark. But for Kane, definitely,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think he will continue.
Kane. I see. I could see 2 first rounders getting traded for Patrick
Yeah,
Kane. I
there's gonna be
mean,
prospects
there's
involved and so on.
yeah,
But
and speaking of this team going through a quote unquote well, rebuild, their first round pick this year is questionable.
The
They
first
might
round
not.
pick isn't a first round pick. It's Columbus's.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they need to acquire a
well,
first round pick ASAP.
there's a condition towards it, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's if it's a top 2 pick, they keep it and it goes to the year after.
Yes, but if it's not a top two pick, it becomes a
Yeah,
Columbus's
Columbus.
pick.
So and they also don't have their own third round pick. They also don't have a fifth round pick. So they have a second and three third rounders. One of them is conditional, the
Yeah,
Oilers one.
so
So
it's definitely
like
going to be
their scouting has
interesting
got
for
to be
them.
on point this year.
Yeah, exactly. So we just wanted to say thank you once again, guys, for checking out our content. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video. Also, check out what went wrong with the Chicago Blackhawks. As you guys all know, Chicago is in need of a serious rebuild, and we do potentially see Kane and Taves walking away from the team. And guys like Hagel and maybe even Fleury, Kubalik, and so on, they're going to have to be moved if Chicago wants to improve their prospect pool and the amount of picks they have, because currently they don't have much of it. And to have a successful rebuild, they need that. So thank you so much, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.